Free information is no different than like gold in a mine. So think about every time that you're on the phone, you're using an app, you're literally creating a gold in a mountain in a mine, and these companies are going in there, and the little workers at this company are the modern day miners, and they're going in and they're mining that gold. And once more, that gold is your information, that raw data. They're throwing it in the trolleys, and they're heaving and hoeing like little dwarves coming out, and then they go back and they're just putting this in like shelves and inventory. And then guess what? The US government comes in and they're like, that's a nice inventory you got. Look at all that gold. Look at all that raw data. We'd like to scoop that up for you. And they're like, whoa, we like that. We like money. And then they make a transaction, and bada bing, bada boom. All of a sudden, your data is more valuable, if not just as valuable, as gold. Apparently, there's a Pokemon Go conspiracy that China is spying on you.
And you will also get 20% off an annual premium subscription.
So, Muda's going to let us know what the hell is going on here.
That said, let's get to the video. July 6, 2016 is when Pokemon Go finally made its rounds into everyone's smartphones.
Man, I was doing this shit like crack. At the gym, going to the park, I was all over trying to find all these goddamn Pokemon.
Now, back in the day, you might recall a whole bunch of people running around, capturing Pokemon, setting up lures.
I was one of these fuckers.
Having literal turf battles with each other over the real world, playing with Pokemon on the go.
That shit was lit!
Now, Pokemon Go, ladies and gentlemen, is quite literally an augmented reality, Pokemon game where you actually go into the real world, walk around, and capture Pokemon. It basically works off of a in-game map that is reflected off of your actual real world where you walk around or geolocated, and you can play with other players, you can explore by yourselves, and on the surface it seems like a pretty harmless game, but it's a game that actually has a fair level of controversy surrounding it. The government of Bosnia back in 2016, around the release of the
no way
game, warned people that they shouldn't be walking into actual minefields. Translating their press release, they said, today we received information that there are cases where users of the Pokemon Go application in Bosnia and Herzegovina enter mine suspect.
They're trying to find an Onyx, okay? They're going into the mine thinking, yo, I need an Onyx. Where's that Onyx going to be? It's going to be by a quarry. Let me go in there. Maybe I can find a Geodude.
Risky areas in order to find Pokemon. All citizens are requested not to do this and to respect the mine danger signs.
This is just the government hoarding off all the Onyxes and the Geodudes to themselves. They don't want you guys to get it. They want to keep all the shiny Onyxes to themselves. Don't let them do it to you. They may even have a gosh dang Steely somewhere up in there, and they're trying to hide that.
I'm just going to say, dog, if you're walking around in a minefield looking for digital Pokemon, then maybe that's just natural selection taking the course. But one thing that...
I mean, that, or they're hoarding the Pokemon.
Isn't actually laughably funny here is Hamdi Bahit, a member of Egypt's Committee of Defense and National Security, actually told the parliament there that Pokemon Go is the latest tool used by spy agencies in the intelligence war.
Is this just propaganda?
Despicable app that tries to infiltrate our communities in the most innocent way under the pretext of entertainment.
That sounds like something your like boomer uncle would say.
But all they really want is to spy on people and the state. Now, that's a pretty big, serious claim, and it's one that actually Niantic has had to try and refute and actually outright deny that it was actually, used as an espionage tool. A spokeswoman from their actual company ended up denying the allegations that the game is a tool of espionage, and even said the company asks all users to abide by local laws and respect the locations you visit and the people you meet during your exploration. Which obviously any company is going to say. I mean, who the fuck would actually say the opposite of that if they want some good public relations? Now, the Pokemon Go CIA conspiracy is not exactly something that's entirely new. 9 years ago on the Pokemon Go Reddit, which, my god, does time actually fly, Pokemon Go and the Central Intelligence Agency. So you all know the company that made Pokemon Go is connected to the Central Intelligence Agency.
Not kidding.
Not kidding. I know it sounds like typical conspiracy bullshit, but you do your own homework, which don't worry, we will in this video, and trace Niantic and its CEO, John Honke, who funds his projects. It's right there. But if you're comfortable scanning your surroundings in high definition for the CIA and Google, by all means continue feeding the AI its deep learning material. So this was a conspiracy that came out.
It's kind of true. The more that we try to investigate, the more we try to, like discover the truth on the internet. Large machine learning algorithms are just scooping up our data on the process of how we're trying to uncover these mysteries, and eventually, it's gonna have like 100 different ways to solve the same problem to uncover the truth. All AI is gonna turn into like the most powerful version of Batman I've ever seen.
That if you were actually using your cell phone and walking around, that you were capturing images that would be sent to Niantic and immediately help the CIA. Well, part of this conspiracy theory actually ended up getting completely proven. And who ended up proving it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it was actually Niantic themselves. So, one of these actual posts that came out about a few days ago, November 12th of this year, they said they were building a large geospatial model to achieve spatial intelligence. So basically, by going down over here, they kind of describe that when you look at a familiar type of structure, whether it's a church, a statue, or a town square, it's fairly easy to imagine what it might look like from other angles. Even if you haven't seen it from all sides, as humans, we have spatial understanding.
So we're trying to give the computers the idea to have perception and depth, like depth perception, to understand, like, hey, this is a monolith out in front of us, or hey, this is an old church or a synagogue. Oh my god.
That means we can fill in these details based on countless similar scenes we've encountered before. But for machines, this task is extraordinarily difficult. Even the most advanced AI models today struggle to visualize and infer missing parts of a scene.
So like if there's a dice, the computer might think it's just a flat two-dimensional object instead of a perfect like cube.
Or to imagine a piece from a new angle. And this is about to change spatial intelligence. So what they basically mentioned was Niantic's visual positioning system, which is a VPS, has been trained on 50 million neural networks, more than 150 trillion parameters.
That's like the human brain.
Enabling operation in over 1 million locations. So this will help computers perceive, comprehend, and navigate the physical world in a way that will seem equally advanced. So analogous to the LLMs, stuff like ChatGPT that you're using, geospatial models are built using vast amounts of raw data.
So if you ask ChatGPT, it says no, Pokemon Go is not directly connected to the CIA. However, man, when you have to add a however or a but, that's never a good thing. The game was developed by Niantic, a company that is spun out of Google, now Alphabet, which has deep ties to the U.S. government and military in some areas through its tech infrastructure and collaborations. The idea that Pokemon Go might be connected to the CIA or other intelligence agencies stems from various conspiracy theories, often based on a mix of speculation and real-world data collection of the potential game. Ooh.
Billions of images in the world, all anchored to precise locations on the globe, are distilled into a large model that enables a location-based understanding of space, structures, and physical interactions. Now, where does all this information, this raw data, come from? Well, if you've been following, ladies and gentlemen, it probably comes from a whole bunch of applications Niantic has built. So if you look at Niantic's history, some of the games that are available right now are games like
Scaniverse, Ingress Prime, Periodot. Oh my gosh.
Ingress Prime, which came, from my understanding, before Pokemon Go. But Pokemon Go and Monster Hunter Now are two gaming-themed versions of Niantic's mapping software. So any of the actual data that has been gathered from Pokemon Go or Monster Hunter Now could, and most likely, from my understanding and my personal belief, was used in actually assisting this company build this crazy geospatial model. So with 500 million downloads just on Android, that's a lot.
That's a lot of downloads.
A lot of data to be grabbing, okay? And not only are we looking at money that obviously they're making, Nintendo is making, the data that they're allowed to grab, let's just look at the permissions for Android alone. So the data that this company collects obviously is photographs and video, which obviously if you allow Pokemon Go the ability to use your augmented reality feature, they can start looking at, the actual video, maybe even a photo as you're capturing the Pokemon. And of course, the further you go down, obviously each of those photos or video sessions are again connected to a location. Sometimes it can be approximate for analytical reasons. And obviously, if you're playing a game where being on a map and geolocated at all times is a necessity, then having your precise location is the most important part, okay? So they kind of show that over the past 5 years, they were focused on building this VPS, and which uses a single image from a phone to determine its position and orientation using a 3D map built from people scanning interesting locations in our game. So they straight
It is kind of cool though. Could we not agree like how advanced technology is getting in like the near future? We may be able to get into games like Tron or like go to a warehouse and like load in like augment like we're just going in there like just maybe in some workout clothes, put on some glasses or something, and everyone's like a Mega Man, and we're just playing like a laser tag, but we see everyone dressed up as like a Mega Man.
up say it's from
That would be litty titty.
their actual games. Like, come on now. So this is like a heat map of generally where information is grabbed. So all over North America, Europe, basically around the world. India, for instance, is pretty popping over here. Japan, all throughout like Eastern Europe, parts of China, Australia, where people live. And of course, one thing they showed was the actual neural mapping as well. So to give an idea, they made this 30-second video to showcase what this works. So a 5-minute neural map. So learning an image from posed RGB images. So here they have a series of images from my understanding, and their neural map allows you to build an understanding of that location
Wow.
in this digital space. So again, that's kind of the stuff that they've been building.
It's so cool how like, and this is pretty much what the internet, like when the computer is seeing, is just a black flat space, and then all of these little dots are just like ones and zeros out in space that are just filling up an area, a spot, and the camera's able to put this all together. The computer's able to put it all together and come up with an image. Not 100% yet, but this is the worst it's gonna be. In 5-10 years, this is gonna be insane.
But Muda, how does the Central Intelligence Agency fit into this? So when I started looking up like where the actual like source of this big conspiracy was popping up again, I found that 5 days ago on like boards like Kotaku in Action, it seems Niantic is using Pokemon Go as a means to collect large amounts of visual training data. They absolutely have admitted it.
Yeah.
For topographic modeling and generative AI or other things. And this led me to a channel known as the Lunduke Journal. There was another post 4 days ago on r/PokemonGo where it said in 2016 this was Lunduke's crazy conspiracy theory about Pokemon Go being used to spy on everyone backed by the CIA. And now in 2024, Niantic Labs proudly brags about using Pokemon Go to spy on you and using that covertly obtained information to build a massive 3D artificial intelligence. Now, I don't think it's necessarily covert. I think anytime there's a free game, especially one that tracks your location and uses your camera, there's probably another ulterior reason that a company would provide you that kind of a game for free.
I think this all comes down to the money. I don't think this is nefarious. I think it comes down to the money. I think this is data that companies gather that is super valuable for these large tech companies and these AI tech companies. So these companies will gather the data for them. They're basically doing the labor, and then the large tech companies come in and buy it in bulk. So basically, they're going to the mines, and the mines are just mining your data, the stuff that you're sending in for free. So it's more like a mail room where it's just constantly coming in. The mail never ends. The data coming in never ends because we're always on the internet, always creating a product, a resource, a need, not a need, but a product and a resource that's to be sold and then marketed to sell back to us to buy and consume again. It's crazy.
Remember, if something is free, you're definitely the product. And if you think Pokemon Go makes these guys a lot of money, having the ability to map 3D locations from just fucking photos is some crazy level of tech that'll
Big brain shit right here. I don't know how all of this IQ stays up in this little noggin.
a lot of governments are willing to pay money for, especially the United States government. So I went to Brian's channel.
And I was saying big tech companies, but yeah, governments would pay even more top dollar because they have an infinite money pool.
Over here, and Brian, whose most popular video literally is 7 days ago, the Pokemon Go spying conspiracy theory, yeah, it's verified. So, this is just Brian's assessment, and this is Brian's words saying that this is possibly just the CIA.
When I hear that the CIA is spying on you, everyone's going to think of a nefarious reason. But this might not even be quote-unquote spying on you. This is just the company gathering excess amount of data, turning your data into a resource like cobalt in a mine, mining that shit. And then when they have the raw cobalt, the raw data, these companies, the governments, the large tech companies are coming in and buying that cobalt, buying that raw data from you, and then building their products, building their whatever they want to sell right back to you. So it's ultimately you buying your data that's been manipulated all over again. It's just this cycle.
or some spying conspiracy
It's kind of
that's
deep.
occurring, right? But anyways, how do we connect Pokemon Go to the Central Intelligence Agency? Well, this is where we have to look at the history of the company. So you have to go all the way back to 2001 in this situation, and you have to basically embroider yourself in something known as Google Earth. So for anybody that has used Google Earth, you probably know that it's the amazing software that allows you to
Yeah, we spent way too much time in this in school, fucking around in Google Earth instead of doing our projects.
basically examine any location in our world. So for instance, do you want to see how Tokyo looks instead of just your standard mapping software? Well, you can just zoom right on in. And in fact, some cities have so much information provided that you can zoom literally into any point and get
Wow.
almost a 3D representation of what the roads
Wow.
look like, of houses.
It's so good.
I mean, this is some crazy, crazy shit.
Like, think about that, man. You could just go on Google Earth right now and just see fucking a town in Kyoto. You can see the Wing English School. Oh my gosh. The Wakasaka Park. Oh, this is so dope.
Now, you might be like, well,
Go to India. Go to Mumbai.
Muda, why are you bringing up Google Earth now? Well, Google Earth, ladies and gentlemen, actually has ties to Niantic. So you might be like, where did Google Earth come from? It wasn't actually made at Google, ladies and gentlemen. No. This actually was developed by a company known as Keyhole Incorporation. Now, the thing about Keyhole is they actually did have software that you could actually use. Now, this was something known as Earth Viewer 3D.
Ayo, this looks like it's from the early 90s.
So that image of Tokyo I showed you was cool, but obviously this is what it used to look like all the way back in the early 2000s. Obviously not,
this is early maps for sure.
Not as granular, not as impressive, but getting an idea of satellite imagery connected like this is still mind-blowing to anyone.
And that was just 22 years ago. Now we have 3D images where you can go in and see the street, the spaces in between the homes. That was 22 years ago, right? Now imagine another 20 years. Holy shit, what are we going to be able to do?
And obviously this was connected to the internet, so you have to launch a client that looked much like this and basically use their servers to get access to, again, this kind of 3D information. So the guy behind it, John Hankey, for anybody that doesn't know, worked on, I believe, Google's like geo products, so stuff like Google Earth, Google Maps, Street View, all that stuff was basically the brainchild of this individual right here. Now, the technology he made with Earth Viewer was so popular that apparently big publications, big news agencies like CNN, CBS, were basically using it to cover the invasion of Iraq, right, back in 2003, where basically they would use their 3D like mapping imagery to do these flyovers. Because obviously, guys, they're not going to be sending in like helicopters and shit to an active war zone at the time. So they exchanged some attribution, but they found out that it was basically so popular that trying to upkeep the software and keep up those server costs, they weren't actually able to make it happen. Even though they made actual deals with Nvidia, Sony, they literally were unable, because of server costs, to keep this thing running for too long. And not only that, you also had employee turnover to worry about, so it was actually kind of a fucking financial nightmare. I mean, you made something that's really popular, it just wasn't monetized properly. So literally it was this stroke of luck that caused an actual agency at the Central Intelligence Agency to pay closer attention. Now, you might not know it at
I don't know if it's a stroke of luck or if it was just somebody's job, but eventually during one of their 9 to 5 shifts, they were going to find this damn thing.
This moment in time, but a company known as IQT showed up at their doorstep. And
IQT, let's see, hold on, my camera's blocking.
IQT
Investigating in global innovation to secure the innovation, IQT.
Showed up at their doorstep and basically said, hey, you want some money, pal? You want to get that little cash infusion? Well, IQT, for anybody that doesn't know, if you go to their About section, they're pretty honest about this. They're actually...
They're pretty honest. We just want your data, and we'll pay you a lot of money for it.
A CIA front. So set up in 1999 by the CIA as an independent, not-for-profit strategic investment firm, we spent a quarter century, 25 years, building unparalleled expertise that we draw on to help startups adapt their highly innovative product.
At least they're honest.
So what kind of products have these people fucking invested in? Well, the CIA's IQT nonprofit agency has put money into groups like Skydio, Capella Space, Bounce Imaging, Rocket Lab, Mersive Technologies, and FireEye. To give you an idea, for space alone, they gave these people money because they give them clear and timely satellite imagery, high-resolution stuff that I'm sure the CIA uses for really good reasons, and also when they need to get good critical analysis.
So when we're sending all these satellites into space, taking pictures or whatnot, this is really the companies that are like this are going in and buying these pictures. I didn't even realize there was a market for this and how much money they're spending. And like CIA backed money. That's insane. That's insane in the membrane.
Of whoever they're targeting for whatever shady reason they need. Now, this isn't a state secret. Like I said, this is something that happens, and this is something that is pretty much available. And we've talked about it in the past. And it's not like it's the only investment they've made. They made 750 plus investments in companies all across Asia.
Active investments too. Not even just past like investments that are done and you could see like the full start to finish of how they do business. A lot of them are still in progress.
North America specifically, and Europe as well, and in tons of fields, whether it be life sciences,
AI,
the cyber field, AI, space. They put tons of money at companies that get their attention. Basically, if you're in any organization that is in a specific group or you're analyzing data or capturing these high-resolution space images, you've probably been contacted by these guys at some point, or at least they're following you and shadowing you at this point. It's fucking creepy. So back in 2003, in order to assist this organization, In-Q-Tel decided to actually have a strategic investment in Keyhole, as they mentioned in this press release that I dug up through the Wayback Machine. So immediately demonstrating the value of Keyhole's technology to the national security community, NEMA used the technology to support the United States troops in Iraq. So within 2 weeks of their engagement with Keyhole,
I mean, just think about it. Like, if you're a military on the planet Earth, how do you cloak yourself from like satellite imagery? Because like, you could try to hide up a base, you could try to be sneaky, but someone could just theoretically go on Google Image and just track you day by day. And if someone's trying to figure out where you are, they can go back like a month, figure out where you were, and then just track you from that point forward. It's actually kind of insane.
Keyhole, we implemented the technology.
Like, how? Where do we have the Harry Potter like invisible cloak
to support our missions within the Pentagon? So chances are, if you were somebody working,
or do we have things like Space Force, and do we have a base out in space to kind of hide from satellite imagery? Man, that sounds kind of crazy, but like,
for, a terror organization in the middle of like, somewhere on the other side of the world, this software was used to map out your village, map out your home, or, the surroundings of it, and basically assist the US military in how to take your life in a matter of minutes. It's kind of insane how much money gets poured in to discover quirky, unique, safe ways to kill our enemies across the world. If you ever get wilded out about investments like this, remember there's an entire military-industrial complex that has existed for decades.
It's like, what do they buy? How do they spend so much money? And people think guns, munitions, tanks, airplanes, and maybe research and development of that. But honestly, probably a lot of it is spent on like throwing a net over a lot of different technologies and stuff like this over AI and satellite imagery and like stuff like this. Because you're just thinking about a satellite imagery. You can take a satellite imagery of a town and theoretically take, the dry point, the assassination point, the getting out point, and all the possible ways of like threats could be in this area. I mean, granted, our own government doesn't do it internally, or doesn't do a very good job internally, because Donald Trump got shot at during his time in the election for a failure in that sense. But doesn't mean that technology is good. Now the humans interpreting it, that's a different story.
Siphoning billions of dollars from the United States governments to develop new weapons, new technologies that ultimately are used to destroy people all over the world. And sometimes, if we're lucky and there's a bit of morality surrounding it, maybe that technology gets trickled down to maybe better our lives in some cases. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff gets made, and a lot of quirky ways to kill people or spy on people gets discovered as well.
It's the balance of yin and yang, my friends. Yin and yang is everywhere, even in modern times. And in order to create some beautiful things, it casts a large shadow.
So at some point down the road in 2004, Google ended up actually buying Keyhole for some undisclosed sum. All right, it certainly wasn't cheap. Now you might be like, Muda, why would the CIA even allow a sale like that? I mean, they punched in money for this organization, but I actually believe when it comes to In-Q-Tel, anytime it's a US company purchasing something, that usually goes through. It's not as if it's a foreign adversary or a foreign national purchasing access to technology the CIA has sort of invested money into. Remember, strategic investments are not made for financial boons. They're made so that the technology can be used at some point down the road for operational reasons, and you can imagine why the CIA would need mapping software that's that good.
Yeah.
So why would Google want Keyhole? Well, they found out that apparently in Google's world, 25% of the search traffic at the time was all relegated to people looking up route planning or maps. So they figured, hell, we've got billions of dollars. Why not buy the best goddamn mapping software in existence? Shit, that's a great idea. And then hopefully
They got the infinite money glitch.
roll that over to things like Street View or just Google Maps. Now, back in 2010, it was actually formed as a company, an internal startup within Google itself in 2010. So Niantic effectively is a company that belongs entirely to Google, right? Now, Google used to own this for like 5 years, 2010 to 2015, until obviously 2016 came by. And, you know, they basically split and became their own individual company.
I think Google has a startup ecosystem like this where they help fund like little investments or like little startup companies and little startup companies like this one. So we'll put little in quotations, but they start these little startup companies, and if they can grow and get to an evaluation where they can get bought and sold, Google then takes a part of that, and they help develop a new business that thus then is going to have a great relationship with them, and theoretically you can use them for strategic partnerships in the future.
But they ended up actually getting a shit ton of funding from Google, obviously, Nintendo, and also the Pokemon Company. Like, we're talking millions upon millions of dollars ended up actually going to this organization. Now, one of their first games was Field Trip, then they made Ingress, and then PokemonGO, and obviously a whole bunch of Nintendo-themed games until finally they released, like, Monster Hunter Now. So they've made plenty of projects, but a whole chunk of these projects are obviously designed to be used with this live mapping feature that they have, constant photographs that are probably being scanned and grabbed from your devices, all themed underneath these big budget, these most iconic video games. So things like Pokemon that, you know, millions, if not billions around the world might actually download. I think billions is a bit of a stretch. I know that Pokemon's huge, but especially when it comes to mobile gaming, you really have to look between like millions, hundreds of millions, maybe over a billion users, which no matter how you cut it, it's still a lot of information that these people can end up actually grabbing. So look, at the end of the day, right, with all of this considered, tons of applications that are free are ultimately designed to gather information off of you and use that information for reasons that actually assist the company beneficially, right? Like financially. So when it comes to, you know, you downloading anything free, whether it be a social media application, a game, even if it's some innocuous software where you download, it, you send it and generate memes, AI generated or enhancements or pictures or whatever, all of these software, if they are free and they're gathering data off of you, that means you are the product, and the data you generate or the data you provide is more beneficial for them to grab and maybe use for something like this, like exactly what Niantic was doing, which is building this, you know, large spatial model that they can then sell to big companies for really important reasons. Now, obviously, I can't confirm that the CIA is really behind any of this. It's just a weird link between these organizations. But to give you an idea, if the CIA was so interested, and this is just my personal analysis, if the CIA was so interested in a 3D mapping software that, again, they could use to basically serve as aerial scanning, for organizations like this, imagine how useful a software where you can basically build a 3D map, a spatial map, based on photographs and have an AI basically realistically build a 3D environment that you could then use to, again, plan situations better. Maybe
I wonder how far of a level this is, because I'm thinking of like, you know, like what if you're trying to break into a building? Can AI or the satellite imaging get like access the inside of the building so you can get a blueprint, like an accurate blueprint of how the room's laid out, so then you can run a whole bunch of different scenarios through it?
maybe place, 3D operators inside and plan those situations. Again, really awesome. Maybe people could use it as a sort of game or demonstration of how to perform an actual operation. I think that has real value to not just the Central Intelligence Agency, but plenty of intelligence agencies around the world. I think that has plenty of applications in the U.S. military. If you don't see it, then honestly, you're an idiot. Need to broaden your horizons a little bit. So yeah, I can see the value.
You need to broaden your aperture.
Of this kind of stuff. And ultimately, it's that value that allows me to kind of look at this conspiracy theory with at least more believability than something like, I don't know, the fucking flat earth for crying out loud, right? Like, this is something where, again, if it came out in 10 years that the CIA used any of the software developed by Niantic to assassinate some fucking person, despot, terrorist, world leader,
Don't be surprised.
cartel boss in some part of the world, I would personally not be shocked in any capacity. Ultimately, the people involved in this
Telling y'all.
kind of software all have backgrounds to super spy programs, the CIA investment firms. So honestly, seeing what Niantic released in that press release is not something that really shocks me. What they were doing was building a massive artificial intelligence that has actual practical applications well beyond gaming off of the backs of free information provided by the average person.
Yep. And going back off of that, that free information is no different than like gold in a mine. So think about every time that you're on the phone, you're using an app, you're literally creating a gold in a like a mountain in a mine, and these companies are going in there, and the little workers at this company are the modern day miners, and they're going in and they're mining that gold. And once more, that gold is your information, that raw data. And they're throwing it in the trolleys, and they're heaving and hoeing like little dwarves coming out, and then they go back and they're just putting this in like shelves and inventory. And then guess what? The U.S. government comes in and they're like, "That's some nice inventory you got. Look at all that gold. Look at all that raw data. We'd like to scoop that up for you." And they're like, "Whoa, we like that. We like money." And then they make a transaction, and bada bing, bada boom. All of a sudden, your data is more valuable, if not just as valuable, as gold. As gold. So, if you guys like the way the words are flowing out my mouth, please make sure you like the video, subscribe, hang out with your boy.